So I'm making this video for everybody to share in my experience and my new change in my life. So I've been now vegan for 13 years, but I'm doing a new transition. I'm going to what some people might call fruitarian, but it's not necessarily fruitarian because fruitarians don't eat quite the same as I do. Fruitarians don't even like the name fruitarian because sometimes they'll have like once a month, like a salad or something like that, just because there's no fruit where they are or something. But it's kind of interesting. But I'm going to a diet, and I'll just call it the Eden diet. I'm going back to the Eden diet before sin. So after sin, vegetables were added to man's diet. Before that time, it was just fruits and nuts. So after I've done this video, I'm going to do a study, and we're going to trace our words through the Bible, and we're going to see that it's just fruits and nuts that Adam and Eve were given in the Garden of Eden. So I've been looking at this, and I've been thinking about this for quite a while. When I first became Seventh-day Adventist, reading through the writings of Ellen White, I seen something that gave me the idea that we'd be fruitarians at the very end of time. And I thought that was pretty interesting. But I didn't quite fully comprehend what exactly the end of time was or when exactly this change would happen. But I'm seeing now that it's actually before, when I was preconceiving in my mind when it was going to happen. So I knew at the end of time would be like that, and as I grew and I learned further on, so probably about, I guess it'd be 7 years ago now, I realized that we shouldn't be eating coarse vegetables unless they're cooked, which would be kale and spinach and turnips and carrots and all those, all the root vegetables, most of your leafy greens and stuff like that. They all needed to be cooked to be eaten. It's what Ellen White taught. It's what the sanitariums taught, but I understood it. I also knew to do away with all the irritating spices. And when you go through what the sanitariums taught about irritating spices, garlic was one of those irritating spices. So I understood right away to do away with garlic, because it's an irritating spice which beclouds the mind, fevers the blood, and all these things eventually lead to poor health and causing disease. So I've been transitioning, and I've been getting healthier and healthier, and I've been fairly strong. I've been healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. Well, I shouldn't say there's nothing wrong with me, but I have had a health issue for years. I had it before we moved to Grenada, but when we moved to Grenada, this health issue disappeared. And then after we moved back from Grenada to Canada, this health issue reappeared again. And I thought, well, maybe it has something to do with the climate. But all of a sudden I realized now that it was maybe not so much due to the climate, but it might have been due to diet. So when we were in Grenada, even before I moved to Grenada, I was gluten-free, but I still had these health issues. So I'll show you this health issue. It's getting better now because I've been doing the fruit diet for like 3 weeks, but I don't know how well you can see this. Sometimes this would get all like really red, it would get sore, sometimes it would crack, it would bleed, it'd be a hard spot. I have that on both my elbows, I have it on my tailbone, and I'd get it on my knees. So I haven't had it really on my knees in a little bit, but it's come back on my tailbone. I have it on both my elbows. And I didn't understand what was causing it. Now, and I still don't understand what was causing it, but I do know that when I moved to Grenada, it disappeared. Just like this mark on my face. This mark on my face used to come up mostly just in the wintertime. I was frostbitten bad years ago, and I just assumed it was a result of frostbite. And every time the wind would blow, it'd be a cool day or something like that, it would always pop up. And it's usually worse in the, I don't know if it's per se worse in the wintertime or if you just notice it more in the wintertime because I'm not, I start losing my tan, but it's there. But when I was in Grenada, it was gone. So there was something that happened in Grenada, and I just thought maybe climate, but then I thought maybe it has something to do with diet. So as I've been reading through Ellen White's writings, there's these 2 quotes that I'd found just fairly recently, within probably the last 4 months, and I thought, this is fascinating. So I'll just read these quotes. It says, the first one is in Letters 114 in 1901. It says, "We are coming to the time when recipes for cooking will not be needed, for God's people will learn that the food God gave Adam in a sinless state is the best for keeping the body in a sinless state." And that was the first one I found. I'm like, that was bold and direct. That says it was just fruit and nuts. Now I'll explain the fruit. I'll explain that, I guess, right now. So I say fruit and nuts because vegetables was added after the fall. And if you trace your words through the Bible, you'll find that it's only fruits and nuts. And the first person that I'd seen that did this and actually wrote it down, and it's in one of his cookbooks, is Thomas Jackson. So Thomas Jackson is quite a well-known medical missionary in the Seventh-day Adventist community, and he traced his words through the Bible to show that it was just fruits and nuts in the beginning. So many years have passed since I read that, and I thought, I'm going to do the same thing and see if he was right in what he did. And I traced my words through the Bible, and sure enough, it came out, it was fruits and nuts. So I started thinking about this. I'm like, that's the best for keeping the body in a sinless state. I thought, that's really fascinating. This really deals with the topic of Christ in you, the hope of glory. If you read 1 John chapter 3, it makes it abundantly clear that if you have Christ in you, you will never sin again, right? Not purposefully. Obviously, you're traveling down the road, you don't know the speed limit, the police officer pulls you over, whatever. Somebody jumps out and scares you and you hit them and say, or you push them to try to, protect yourself because, they're just all of a sudden in your face and like, oh, and say they fall and die, you just murdered that person, but it was an accident, right? You didn't do it on purpose. So you can be tricked, surprised, deceived into sinning, right? I had a friend one time, pretty sure we stole a car. He had me drive. I was just oblivious. As I'm driving, I'm like, I wonder, and we're going, anyways, long story. So anyways, yeah, I didn't think yeah. But anyways, I also found this other quote from Ellen White, which was fascinating. It says, by precept and example, make it plain that the food which God gave Adam in a sinless state is the best for man's use as he seeks to regain that sinless state. I read that, and all of a sudden it was like a no-brainer. The wheels started turning in my mind. I need to transition to this diet because I don't want to sin. I don't want to live, right? If this says it helps me to seek to regain that sinless state and that's going to keep me from sinning, unless I cherish sin, why would I not want to go into that diet? It's just a no-brainer. Yeah, transition to that, right? Just instantly go that way because you can't serve two masters. If you sin, you're serving sin, which means you're serving Satan, right? I don't want to serve Satan. I only want to serve Jesus, right? I understand that the law, every time you break the law of God, right? The 613 commandments or the 1035 in the New Testament, whichever. There's a lot more in the New Testament because now all of a sudden includes thoughts. Why would you want to do that? That always hurts you. It always hurts God, or it always hurts somebody else. No matter what, it always hurts somebody, right? You're either hurting somebody else, you're hurting yourself, or you're hurting God. So I'm like, why would I want to do that? I only want to live to be a benefit to everyone on earth. So this should be the diet that I want to go. And then I read something interesting in Ellen White, and I realized this more so as I've started this transition. So for the first 2 weeks, I had grains 2 days the first week and grains 2 days the second week, and I'd done away with all the vegetables. And it was kind of a struggle for me to have just the fruits and nuts. And then to eat them temperately because you just crave. You just you don't realize how hooked you are on food until you start doing stuff like this, knowing it's going to be permanent, right? If I was just doing, say, a watermelon fast or melon fast or a grape fast, I could do that for a month because I know it's temporary and it's not a real big deal because mind over matter, it's just a temporary thing. But here I'm like, I'm doing this forever. I'm going to get rid of all my grains, eh? And so I got rid of all my grains. I gave them away to my neighbors. And I'm like, huh. But it's been a struggle. And I didn't realize how much a grip this appetite had on me. And I didn't think it had this much grip on me. Like, I've been 2 meals a day. Sometimes I do 3 meals a day, but in general, I could do 2 meals a day. I've been vegan. There's been no meat. I've been eating healthily, right? I wasn't eating the garlic. I wasn't eating coarse vegetables. I was doing everything by the book that's best for health. And it's let me have a clear mind. So when I read my Bible, I can read things as it's written and actually believe it, as long as it's not figured over something prophetic. Where I see a lot of people really, really struggling just to believe the Bible, and they always throw something in that, they're always adding their own interpretation on it. So reading another quote through Ellen White just recently helped me realize how much food still has a grip on me. And this fruitarian diet is something really fascinating. It's not really fruitarian. I'll just call it the Eden diet because it's fruits and nuts. But Ellen White also says this. She says the strength of temptation to indulge appetite can be measured only by the inexpressible anguish of our Redeemer in that long fast in the wilderness. That's where he did the 40-day fast in the wilderness. Okay. She says, he knew that the indulgence of perverted appetite would so deaden man's perceptions to the sacred things that they could not be discerned. Adam fell by the indulgence of appetite. Christ overcame by the denial of appetite. And our only hope for regaining Eden is through firm self-control. If the power of indulged appetite was so strong upon the human race that in order to break its hold, the divine Son of God, in man's behalf, right? Jesus did this in our behalf, because Jesus was tempted at all points like we are, had to endure the fast of nearly 6 weeks. What a work is before the Christian. Yet, however great the struggle, he may overcome. By the help of divine power, which withstood the fiercest temptations that Satan could invent, he too may be entirely successful in this warfare with evil, and at last may wear the victor's crown in the kingdom of God. So here it's saying, God is here to help us. And you don't even need God to help you in this. Now, some people are like, oh, but man, look at all the fruitarians out there already. And they eat only fruits. They don't even eat the nuts, more or less, right? Maybe once a month or something like that, they might have a salad. Sometimes they'll have other food because they can't find fruits, depending on where they're living, or they're going out with people. But often these people bring fruits to restaurants and just eat their fruit where all their people order their meals, and they just eat like the tomatoes or, and they do mono meals. They don't eat the nuts. They just eat fruits. Some of them will eat mushrooms, but it's just fascinating. Here they can do it. They're not having God help them, right? Because they don't believe in Jesus and God the way we do. They're like, they're. I guess the only way to say it is they're new agey. Maybe is new age, or maybe you could say that they're when those do by nature the things contained in the law, right? That they're a law unto themselves. So maybe God is working with them and helping them to overcome because they're seeing in the law of nature these things, attributing it to God. Maybe that's the better way to say it, not necessarily new agey. Who knows? I don't know. God knows, and I'm not judging their minds or their hearts. But they're able to overcome. And they realize when they do this that they're more in control of themselves, right? They're not tempted. They don't say sin, but they don't do things that are wrong. They won't drink coffee or tea. They don't eat chocolate. They're just following the health message to the T because it makes them feel good. Their bodies feel great when they do this. It's just totally fascinating. But Jesus understood this, and he spent 6 weeks fasting in the wilderness to overcome this temptation. So I'm really realizing this now, as I've now been 6 days with no grains whatsoever. I'm not having such a difficult time with it now, but I'm weighing and wrestling how to eat properly. A lot of these fruitarians eat mono meals where it's just like I sit down and I eat a melon, period. That's my breakfast. And then sometimes supper will be a melon, period. That's it. They eat 2 meals because uh, they understand about having to have the belly empty in order to rebuild, to gain health, for so many different reasons. And many of these people fast. Like, not only are they fruitarian, then they fast all the time. So the difference with me being is I'm doing this through the writings of Ellen White, and I understand that there's fruits and nuts. Now they will eat nuts like once a month. Sometimes they might not have lettuce, they might have like fruit, and then they'll just have like some nuts. These fruitarians. But there's enough things in Ellen White that should give us uh, a better understanding and better grasp of how to have perfect health, how to be stronger, like physically stronger. Like for myself right now, I'm pretty skinny and people watch me do things that I do and they're usually baffled because I'm as skinny as I am and I can do things that they just don't expect. I'm quite a bit stronger than what I look. Even though I'm a big person, sometimes these skinny people can be really, really strong. And that's not always necessarily just because I'm vegan, because, I had cousins that lived on a dairy farm, and I remember, if I recall, they were quite strong and quite skinny too. Uh, they put on real muscle and not fake muscle from working out and stuff. So part of the reason for this journey is to have perfect health because I've been still struggling with a couple health issues. So even though I've been vegan and being quite healthy and eating just, for 13 years now, I've been vegan, I've been healthy, I've been following all these things, following Ellen White's writings, the counsel that she gives, been following it quite strictly. And I've enjoyed it because it's a privilege for us to, we should not be looking at it as drudgery. It should be a privilege for us to be following these health laws, to have perfect health so we just feel our best. So that way we won't be tired or whatever. So I've been struggling with a few health issues for many, many years. I used to have severe sleep apnea. Through the Seventh-day Adventist health message, I overcame severe sleep apnea. And I was one of those unique cases. I was fit, training for triathlons, but I nearly died twice because I had severe sleep apnea. So I slept with a machine for 7 years until finally I understood some changes. I made these changes and I overcame my sleep apnea. And boom, here I am today. But still, I don't wake up feeling refreshed very often. Most often during days, I'll wake up and I'm still like, those people that, it's hard to get out of bed because you're still a little bit tired. It's like, oh, it'd be nice to sleep a little bit. Well, I'd be lying there. I'm like, oh, my body says it'd still be nice to sleep a little bit longer. But I don't. I get out of bed because my mind's like, yeah, but I'm awake now and we're ready to go. My body's like, but I'm not quite ready to go. So I've never had that perfectly, this feel of being refreshed and just jump out of bed and away we go. And then I also have this health issue. But now that I've been on the fruit diet for 3 weeks, it's starting to go away, just kind of like what I did in Grenada. So I'm thinking that the transition, or the thing that in Grenada uh, that gave me the health where I didn't have these issues, was that vegetables were so expensive there, we didn't eat them very often, but we often had mostly fruit. We had fruit all the time. We had fruit on the properties where we were. It was just lots and lots of fruit, and I didn't have these health issues. But there could be one other. So eating all this fruit might be something that is, it's not it's not going to cure these. There's a problem inside my body that's causing this health issue, and while eating all this fruit and stuff like that might cure what's happening on the outside, the issue is obviously still there because I had it before I went to Grenada. It left when I was in Grenada. I came back home and then it reappeared again. So if it reappeared again, that means that there's an issue going on in my body that's causing this. Now, there's one thing that could be causing this that I've had no control over, and I have mercury fillings all through my mouth. So over the next couple months, I'm probably going to have those removed. And then if that is the cause of these skin issues, praise God, and then they'll be gone forever. And I'll have no idea if that was actually the cause of the skin issues because going on the fruit diet is obviously making my skin issues seem to disappear again. So the bonus about being perfectly healthy is that you can make right choices. We can know that no temptation has taken us but such as is common to man, and God is always willing to make a way of escape. And when we have a clear mind, there's nothing that's going to be there clouding our mind to make the wrong judgments. So by doing the fruitarian diet, having the clearest mind you can have, and this is what the fruitarians will all say. They'll say on a fruitarian diet, you have the clearest mind you ever have. It doesn't mean you're going to become that much smarter or anything like that. You're just going to have a clear mind. And I've been noticing that I haven't had quite the same brain fog. And before I wouldn't even really have acknowledged this brain fog. But as I do this fruit diet, especially more raw fruit versus some of the cooked fruits, it's clearer. My breathing is clearer. My sinuses are clear. Although when I eat cooked food, my sinuses seem to clog up a little bit more. So it was interesting. When I was young, I was bit by a dog and it did some real damage. And I could only breathe through one nostril sometimes. And if somebody were to ever like gag my mouth, I would have died. I could not have lived. I would have passed out. I would have died. I could not breathe through my nose. Then I had surgery on my nose because they're like, oh man, your septum is just like crazy. No wonder you can't breathe. And they straightened it. But in general, I could still only breathe through. Then I could breathe through one nostril easily, always, and 2 nostrils sometimes. But now as I've been going to fruit, and if it's not cooked, I can breathe through my nostrils clearly always. It's just really, really neat. So the reason why I'm going to this diet is mostly I don't want to sin. 2, I want my body to be in perfect health. Because if we're to live all to the glory of God, if we're to be a living testimony, then we should be keeping all God's health laws because they make us happier, one, they give us good health, and then we're a witness unto the world as to what kind of sort of it will be like when we go to heaven, where we won't have any of these sicknesses or issues or diseases, and we can actually have that here on earth. So as we read in Exodus 15, verse 26, it says, "And said, If thou wilt diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes," right? So statutes, that's a lot of the health laws and stuff like that too. "I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I brought thee out upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord thy God that healeth thee." And in Deuteronomy 7:15 it says, "And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which thou hast knowest upon thee, but I will lay upon them all that hate thee." So here it says that God is not going to put any of the diseases of the Egyptians upon us. And if you have them, he's going to take them away from you. We can have perfect health. So there's one other Bible verse that talks about this, and it's foreshadowing about this is going to happen at the end of time where everybody's going to be doing this. It says, "Let no man," this is in Colossians 2. Colossians 2 verse 15. I'll just read 15 and 16 just to give whole context for it. It says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day, or of a new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, for the body is of Christ." So understand, it says the body is of Christ. That means that it's including everybody through this whole transition. It's taking you right from the Garden of Eden till now, through all the different things that people have believed, through all the errors that they lived through, even though they're meat eaters, even though they're vegan, even though they're vegetarian, even though they're going to be fruitarian at the end. And this is where it gets to the fruitarian part. Because it says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink." So all of a sudden we see this. We have Paul saying this. Now Paul was already keeping the Seventh-day Adventist health message, because he said, "I will eat meat no as long as the earth standeth," or something like that, "if it makes my brother to offend." That's a big paraphrase. But anyways, he is already doing the Seventh-day Adventist health message, and he's the one that talks about this, that "let no man therefore judge you in meat and drink." So we know it's not in the past, because it says, "Let no man judge you," because it's a shadow of things to come. So it's a shadow of things to come. It's not in their present time. It's not in their past. And it can't be in heaven, because in heaven no man judges you. That's why you're already there. So this happens just before Jesus comes back again, that they're going to be eating and drinking differently. So this health message about being the Eden diet, we'll just call it the Eden diet, not necessarily fruitarian, is present truth starting now. Because in Ellen White's day, she said that, the time is coming, and it wasn't in her day. You'll see a transition in her writings, though, which is really interesting, where she was not incorporating vegetables in her quotes anymore as food, and it was just grains, fruits, and nuts constitute the diet that, right? But now it's transitioning even further, that the grains, which are the grasses that you find in the Bible, that people started eating, even though it doesn't really say that you could eat grasses, which is really interesting. It must have been part of that herb of the field. Grasses must be encompassed in that, that people ate. But anyway, she had transitioned. She got rid of all the vegetables. It's just the grasses now. But here, right at the very end, we're all of a sudden seeing that it's going to be fruits and nuts. So this is my new journey. I'm going to do a video on what was the original diet in Eden, and I'm going to do that right after this. And I just pray that many other people there might see and know the truth and understand what's going on here, and join me in this journey. And it's going to be a learning experience, because we have to learn to do it properly. We need to know whether we should be mixing our fruits and nuts, whether they need to be separate, whether it should be a mono meal where it's just one, so you can have absolute perfect digestion. It's a really fascinating, interesting journey. And I long to meet some of the people that join me in this journey. And someday we'll all talk about it in heaven. It's my prayer that a lot of people will take the health message, that they'll learn it, that they'll understand it. Even if you haven't seen it in Ellen White, we can see that the world's got little pieces of it. And let's let Jesus work through us that we might be able to live the same way as Adam and Eve did before the fall to sin, through the power of Christ working through us.